Full force.
Revolution.
The Vedic universe versus globe Earth.
This is the image of the Earth we're all familiar with. We've seen it since a very early age, and it would seem to be factual. But is it really? Let's look at the evidence around it. Many of the world's ancient cultures have a similar conception of the universe as a globe, but with a flat earthly plane across the center. These may seem crude at first glance, but on further inspection many are quite advanced. Let's look at the ancient Vedic conception from the Puranas. In the 5,000-year-old Bhagavad Purana, the universe is described as a globe 4 billion miles in diameter, with a flat earthly plane across the center called Bhumandala. In the center is a pivot named Mount Meru which the sun revolves around, and there are 7 concentric circles each of land and oceans stretching halfway out across the flat plane. There are 7 gross levels below within the Earth, and 7 subtle heavenly levels above. The stars and planets revolve around Dhruvaloka, the pole star. So this is a very different conception than the modern view of a globe rotating in space. Let's look at the empiric evidence for a flat Earth as opposed to a globe model. Geocentric versus heliocentric. Images from space. Let's look at what are supposedly photographs of the Earth from space and see if they constitute proof of a globe. This series of images show a difference in continent sizes, especially between 2012 and 2015. The size of America is vastly different. If they were genuine photos, the Earth wouldn't be lit the whole side and look two-dimensional, it would look much more three-dimensional like the enhanced image on the right. The images aren't taken from outer space, they are shot from high altitude within the atmosphere in strips and put together as a composite image, mapped over a sphere by computer software. The gaps in the images are then digitally painted in with Photoshop using the clone stamp tool. NASA admit to this and say it has to be done that way, but if there was a single satellite image from space there would be no need to Photoshop images. This can be seen in the repeat pattern of the exact same clouds. This is deceitful. In images from the NASA website, the levels can be adjusted in Photoshop and reveal the Earth has been pasted in from another photo. This photo of the Hubble telescope from NASA's website can be downloaded and the levels changed in Photoshop, revealing a hand holding a model. Clearly a fake image. What else are they faking? There are numerous other examples of faked images in the moon landing, the subject of many documentaries, and much evidence it was impossible to reach the moon through the Van Allen belts and extremely high temperature of the thermosphere. This video animation is CGI, computer-generated imagery, though with modern technology it can seem real. This is free stock footage, the paid ones are even better. What to speak of the budget of Hollywood movies, and the $20 billion annual budget of NASA. Seeing is not believing anymore. Let's talk about curvature. Images taken at high altitude claim to show the curvature of the Earth, but it's only the distortion of wide-angle lenses. With a lens corrector the horizon is flat, hence the word horizon, meaning horizontal. No matter how high you go the horizon remains flat and rises to eye level. On a globe it would move down below eye level and begin to curve. The claim is that curvature can be seen from 35,000 feet, but even at over 100,000 feet the horizon is still flat. In reality curvature doesn't exist. This footage from Dogcam is over 110,000 feet on a balloon and no curvature is seen, the horizon remains at eye level. On Google Earth at eye level of 34 kilometers, which is the same height as the balloon footage of 110,000 feet, a huge amount of curvature is seen. Clearly, something is wrong here. The natural physics of water is to find and maintain its level. If Earth were a giant sphere, tilted, wobbling and hurtling through infinite space, then truly flat, consistently level surfaces would not exist here. But since Earth is in fact an extended flat plane, this fundamental physical property of fluids finding and remaining level is consistent with experience and common sense. People often ask the question, doesn't water fall off the flat Earth? They picture the Earth still floating in space rather than part of an extended flat plane. The water is held in all around the flat circle by the Antarctic ice wall. Many rivers are impossible on a globe Earth. The Nile would be flowing over 4,000 miles upward against the curve. The Suez Canal is 100 miles long with no locks as it flows over a flat plane. There would be 6,669 feet of drop on a globe model. The same is true on land with railroads. The London and Northwestern Railway forms a straight line 180 miles long between London and Liverpool. If the world were actually a globe, however, curving 8 inches per mile squared, the 180-mile stretch of rail would form an arc with the center point at Birmingham raising over a mile, a full 5,400 feet above London and Liverpool. As a surveyor and engineer of 30 years published in the Birmingham Weekly Mercury said, all our locomotives are designed to run on what may be regarded as true levels or flats. There are, of course, partial inclines or gradients here and there, but they are always accurately defined and must be carefully traversed. But anything approaching to 8 inches in the mile, increasing as the square of the distance, could not be worked by any engine that was ever yet constructed. Let's consider air flights and how they should work on a globe. If the Earth were truly a sphere 25,000 miles in circumference, airplane pilots would have to constantly correct their altitudes downwards so as to not fly straight off into outer space. Pilots would have to constantly dip their nose downwards and descend 2,777 feet, over half a mile every minute. Otherwise, without compensation, in 1 hour's time the pilot would find themselves 31.5 miles higher than expected. In reality, no pilot ever has to compensate for this curvature. On a ball Earth Cape Town, South Africa to Buenos Aires, Argentina should be a straight shot over the Atlantic following the same line of latitude across, but instead every flight goes to connecting locations in the Northern Hemisphere first, stopping over anywhere from London to Turkey to Dubai. These make absolutely no sense on the globe but are completely understandable options when mapped on a flat Earth. On a ball Earth, Johannesburg, South Africa to Sao Paulo, Brazil should be a quick straight shot along the 25th southern latitude, but instead nearly every flight makes a refueling stop at the 50th degree north latitude in London first. The only reason such a ridiculous stopover would work is if the Earth is flat. The seasons on a globe Earth are explained by a tilt of the Earth toward or away from the Sun. If this was the case, the Arctic and Antarctic would be very similar in climate, but they are very different. Antarctica is by far the coldest place on Earth with an average annual temperature of approximately -57 degrees Fahrenheit and a record low of -135.8. The average annual temperature at the North Pole, however, is a comparatively warm 4 degrees, and enjoys moderately warm summers and manageable winters, whereas the southern Antarctic region never even warms enough to melt the perpetual snow and ice. On a tilting ball Earth spinning uniformly around the Sun, Arctic and Antarctic temperatures and seasons should not vary so greatly. The flat Earth model has a localized sun moving in concentric circles above the flat plane, illuminating locally. The red line is the path of the equator, the yellow circle summer in what we know as the northern hemisphere, and the orange line summer in the southern hemisphere. This explains the difference between the Arctic in the center getting much more sun and the Antarctic circle on the outer edge receiving far less sunlight. This also explains the midnight sun phenomenon in countries close to the North Pole. This midnight sun that never actually sets only happens in the northern hemisphere, inconsistent with the globe model, but makes sense on the flat model with the sun circling in the center. In the Vedic model, the sun revolves around the flat plane of Bhumandala with Mount Meru as the central pivot. It appears localized to the Earth, which is near the center of the flat plane due to atmospheric refraction acting like a lens, even though the sun is described as being 10,000 yojanas or approximately 80,000 miles above the Earth's surface. The circular path the sun travels above the mountain range of Manasatara is calculated to be 760,800,000 miles. In this video footage you can see how the sun changes size as it circles over the flat plane. It also moves to the right as it's moving in a clockwise motion. This change in size and movement doesn't make sense on a globe model. They say gravity is what keeps everything stuck all the way around a spinning ball, a force pulling everything to the center. But there are huge problems with that theory which has never been proven. If the force of gravity held water and everything else to its surface, the force wouldn't allow anything to freely move across it. We would all be pinned to the ground like on the gravity wheel funfair rides. If the Earth is a spinning globe, the spin is greatest at the equator and zero at the poles. If I'm standing on the equator spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, my weight will be 100 pounds. Near the poles the spin would reduce to 100 miles per hour and the same gravitational pull would be so great to keep me on the surface at the equator that my weight would be 10 times as much at around 1,000 pounds and I would be squashed like a bug. If the globe Earth is spinning at over 1,000 miles per hour, and the speed of sound is 767 miles per hour, then we wouldn't be able to hear anything as we'd move away from the sound at about 330 miles per hour. Some claim the atmosphere rotates with the globe, but sound is carried in the ether or space, not the air. Density explains why objects fall to Earth, not gravity. If the object is more dense than the air, it sinks. If less dense, it floats. The speed objects fall is due to the air resistance, which is why in a vacuum a bowling ball and feather fall the same speed. The so-called gravitational force that should pull the balls more dense make up faster to the ground doesn't apply. It doesn't exist. If all the planets above us are spheres, why isn't Earth? This is a common question, and assumes the other planets are globular. They're not. Contrary to paintings in textbooks, when planets are viewed through telescopes, they are seen to be pulsating light energy, changing shape and color, not at all solid earthly and gaseous bodies we could land upon. The word planet means wandering star. Look at the footage of some of the main planets compared to what we've been taught they look like, vastly different. Compare this footage to NASA's CGI Venus. Jupiter. The star Vega. Mercury. This is NASA's Mercury, also just CGI. This is Saturn. Indeed, it does have a ring around it, but if you Google NASA Saturn, this is what you get, simply cartoons. Mars. Look at NASA's image of Mars. a solid-looking globe. Nice artwork admittedly, but simply a fantasy image. The real Mars here is pulsating. It is not terra firma that can be landed upon as they claim. None of the planets match up to what NASA present us as reality. Simply another of their deceptions. They claim to have landed on Mars, but it has been shown that the images are taken on Devon Island in Canada. Zooming in on one photo shows not a rock but an Arctic lemming, native to the island. I'm sure Mars doesn't also have these creatures. It's simply laughable. In the Bhagavad Purana, the planets are stated to be in the order of the days of the week, beginning from Sunday, Moon Day, Venus is Tuesday, Mercury Wednesday, Mars Thursday, Jupiter Friday, and Saturn Saturday. This means the Moon is further than the Sun. Modern astronomy says the Moon is very close to Earth and claim eclipses of the Moon are the shadow of the Earth. Let's look at that idea. The same side of the Moon always faces the Earth. The official claim is that although there is some libration because the Moon's orbit is not perfectly circular, the Moon is tidally locked in synchronous rotation, meaning it takes the exact same time to rotate around its own axis as it does to revolve around the Earth. So we never see the dark side of the Moon. Coincidental indeed. This is a NASA CGI rendition of the whole Moon supposedly taken from satellite images.
Got back some incredible images from Discover satellite. It's 1 million miles away from Earth. In fact, it's giving us perspective that we rarely get to see. You can see Earth in its entirety, and you can also see the Moon passing by Earth. And this is so interesting because it's the dark side of the Moon. It's the side of the Moon that from here on Earth, we never get to see. Some people have seen the dark side of the Moon. The astronauts even landed on the dark side of the Moon, and we have seen snapshots from space from this side. But the perspective that we're seeing and the resolution is incredible that NASA has released. So why is it that we never get to see that dark side of the Moon that Discover satellite 1 million miles away has actually been able to give us? Well, the Moon rotates 360 degrees every time it orbits Earth. And there's this synchronous rotation pattern as it rotates every 27 days that we only see the same side of the Moon as it goes around. So the same side always faces Earth. Luckily, with Discover satellite, though, we will be able to see these images of the dark side of the Moon twice a year.
According to them. So here you go. There's the Moon transiting the Earth with the dark side illuminated because the sun is behind us, behind the camera. So take a look. Okay, so here's what I see. I don't know what you see. I don't see any of the clouds moving. The clouds are completely static. The rotation of the Moon is non-existent because that dark spot stays in the same place even though the Earth itself is rotating, so the Moon should be rotating.
Take a look at the size of the Earth in this recent image from NASA, compared to the size of the Earth in the photos from the alleged Moon landings. It's totally different. Either one image, or both are fabricated. In a lunar eclipse, the red tint of the Moon is said to be caused by Earth's atmosphere. As sunlight travels through it, it refracts some of the light so that a small portion reaches and illuminates the Moon, and it filters out most of the blue-colored light. A bit of a convoluted explanation. Shadows do not change the color of an object, but a semi-transparent body passing before it can change its color. The Vedic cosmology explains these dark planets as Rahu and Ketu, which eclipse the Sun and Moon. There have been many recorded incidences of lunar eclipses where both the Sun and the Moon have been visible above the horizon at the same time, technically called a synhelion, meaning that it could not be the Earth that is causing the shadow. If the Moon was a sphere reflecting the Sun's light, its light would taper off at the edges, and a hot spot would be apparent. The Vedic wisdom describes the Sun and Moon as disks, not as globes. The sunlight is heating but the moonlight is cooling, sunlight antiseptic but moonlight septic. They are electromagnetic opposites, like the anode and cathode of a battery, positive and negative. The sun is not a burning ball of gas as nothing burns in the vacuum of space, and its heat is transferred through the ether. In the Vedas, the sun, called Surya in Sanskrit, is said to move as on a chariot that rides around the circumference of Manasatara mountain. In ancient Greek culture, the same conception of the sun chariot is called Apollo. Interestingly, NASA named the moon mission Apollo after this, and the same symbolism in their patches is clear. So according to the Vedas, the sun, moon and other planets and stars all revolve around a flat plane, lighting a localized area of the Earth. It is not that day and night are caused by a greatly distant sun not reaching the opposite sides of a globe. What about satellites? Surely they prove a global Earth. It's a little known fact that satellites were the invention of science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke. The idea that such a piece of technology can be sent up to a certain height in the atmosphere where it begins to orbit the Earth at the exact same speed as the Earth's rotation, 17,500 miles per hour, known as geostationary, is science fiction in itself. The temperature in the thermosphere can reach up to 2,500 degrees Celsius and no material satellites are made of can withstand that heat. 6,578 satellites have supposedly been sent into orbit, yet not a single genuine photo of Earth has been taken from one nor any video footage. When you Google satellite in space, you get nothing but CGI renditions, no genuine photos or videos, simply cartoons. That's a massive alarm bell. Interestingly, on the first page of results is this image claiming the satellite hoax. People are already waking up. Most communications are via cable, and GPS works not from satellites but from the triangulation of land-based towers. Dishes point towards these transmitters and any pointing towards the sky are receiving signals bounced off the ionosphere. The United States owns all GPS and everyone has to use it under their control, so the deception is kept under wraps. Doesn't Google Earth prove the globe model? Isn't that taken from satellite images in space? The answer is no. The images are taken from high-altitude craft and balloons and then joined together digitally and mapped onto a sphere. You could potentially map them onto any shape, but it's not reality. Google Earth has been shown to have flaws in the imagery touching, and the main discrepancy is Antarctica as a continent on the bottom of the globe. Antarctica is a circle around the flat plane, so when wrapped around the globe it shrinks to a separate continent, the central part of which has no actual detail. The Antarctic Treaty prevents anyone going there by military control to verify its shape. Why are they guarding it so heavily if it's simply a mass of snow and ice? How does a compass work on a globe? In certain countries of the southern hemisphere, Australia for example, magnetic north would be through the center of the globe, whereas on a flat map the North Pole is in the center, so wherever you are on a flat plane it points to that center. A big question is often, why the lie? And there are many good reasons, generally to do with power and control. By giving people a certain amount of knowledge and restricting it makes it easier to keep people herded and unquestioning. Together with various distractions it effectively makes it much easier to manage or govern the masses of people for the benefit of the few at the upper echelons. And it makes a massive amount of money from taxes. NASA's budget in 2017 was $19.1 billion. ESA's budget for 2018 is 5.6 billion euros. The great deceit lies in knowing what secret societies have been doing in concealing knowledge and painting a different picture of reality. Such people in societies such as the Freemasons have a vested interest to keep people ignorant, and a quick look at history of the globe over about 500 years shows Freemasons to be the culprits. From Pythagoras to Copernicus, Galileo, Kepler, Newton and Einstein. The Jesuits have also strongly pushed the heliocentric model and the Big Bang Theory. The modern-day Freemasons are the heads of government, shadow government, Federal Reserve and NASA. Astronauts have numerous references to Freemasonry and Satanism, which is practiced by the higher-level Masons, in their badge symbolism and hand signs. NASA was started as an occult organization and remains so at the controlling level. Whereas NASA in Hebrew means to deceive, Veda means knowledge. The Vedas teach truth for the benefit of all beings, just the opposite of what NASA and today's government stand for. The cosmology of the Vedas, detailed extensively in the Puranas, is far more advanced than modern scientific knowledge, which is full of mistakes and cheating. The people in power know the reality, they simply conceal it and keep knowledge amongst the elite few. Furthermore, they often put it hidden in plain sight, as unsuspecting people don't see the many obvious clues. The UN logo has a flat Earth map in the center, divided by 33 sections denoting the 33 degrees of Freemasonry. The National Maritime Organization has a clear flat Earth logo also, as does the World Health Organization. Flat Earth maps can be seen at many prominent places in the world of power and wealth, banks, airports, etc. Why do such powerful organizations display flat Earth maps instead of the typical globe we're always presented with? They clearly know the flat Earth reality. We might doubt the likelihood of a worldwide conspiracy, as if millions of people are in on it, but understanding the pyramid power structure simply means only those at the top levels know what's going on, and humans have a tendency to blindly follow without enough question, so the masses aren't aware. They just go about their jobs and all assume we're on a spinning globe in a sort of mass consensual trance. But as soon as even a few question the status quo, the whole house of cards begins to fall and the deceit crumbles slowly but surely, paving the way for true knowledge. And at this point in history, with the internet allowing access to and sharing of knowledge on such a large scale, it's much harder to keep people quiet, and we can see with huge surges of Google searches on flat Earth, the powers have to really step up the effort to quash that growing concern, whether it's controlled opposition, paid shills muddying the waters of debate, or propaganda in the media strengthening the globe paradigm. We see NASA really pushing people out on world tours talking down the flat Earth simply as a delusion, and their spokespeople are ex-actors and comedians, so people often prefer to be entertained rather than receive inconvenient truths, and feel safe in the flock where most people still accept the globe model as infallibly proven. To question it is simply absurd. Tinfoil hat material, mental instability. Thus it's easily dismissed by many except outside the mainstream circuit. But at the same time, huge amounts of people are awakening to a spiritual way of life, whether it's yoga and meditation, vegetarianism and veganism, environmentalism and anti-consumerism. There is great hope, and wisdom from ancient cultures that have stood the test of time is available to guide us towards a brighter future for all. I believe we have an obligation to each other to improve this place wherever we can, and we can gain inspiration and strength from knowing the Earth as a product of a loving Creator, as a steady flat plane under complete control.